Hello, KingTheist. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that, and I really enjoy the discussions that we hold. I hope we can continue to do this. This will be relatively quick. I just want to outline what I see as far as DNA and language and make sure that I'm getting your entire point. First, I know that you did not deny the science of DNA at all. I thought that explaining I thought that that would help in explaining the possibility of RNA evolving into DNA. I do think that it helped. And I was not inferring in any way that you didn't know or agree with natural selection. But again, I just thought that explaining it, explaining how the complexity and the randomness are not the same thing, I thought that that could explain how DNA could have evolved without the need for a creator. I really do respect your honest effort to reconcile your beliefs with the knowledge that we hold in this world. All too often I met with theists and atheists alike who deny common knowledge and believe that they can somehow know for a fact things which are inherently unknowable. I thank you. As for DNA being the language of God, I can see how that makes sense at first glance. It's a good analogy. I like it. But it's just entirely too obvious to me that language has evolved very similar to DNA, and that's, I think, why I like the analogy. You might consider it created, as we have made it without having something beforehand, but that is very different. It's a very different idea of a creation than compared to God creating a universe with the intent of it being as it is today, or as it was back then. There is no way that early man created language with the intent to make it as it is today. It's evolved from precursor languages much like we have evolved. At the very, very most, their intent could have been simply to communicate with the person with them at that time, and then the next person they met, etc., until a mutually accepted group of grunts and noises became known to mean something. That would have been the first language, and it would have evolved from there. Now, I know you were comparing DNA to a language and not talking about language itself, but again, it's a great analogy, and I think you made a very good point. In this context, I think they go together very well. Now, when I say language, from now on, I'm referring to language in general, and you're comparing language to DNA. I don't want you to think that I took on the subject of language when you were only talking about DNA. So, I see languages and DNA as having evolved very similarly. They were not created by an intelligent being, but arose to deal with the circumstances present at that time. And then they evolved to adapt to new circumstances. Language evolved with us, and not outside of the process, same as DNA. English is an evolution of the languages before that, DNA and RNA. If we had one world language, and we all spoke it, and it hadn't changed since the very beginning, I could agree. But language and DNA have evolved since the beginning. DNA is mutated, and it's not the same thing. In that case, it would be unchanging and just like almost like a signature. But again, because language in general, and not just different languages, but within one language, the English language, it changes all the time, or it evolves. I don't see that it was created perfect and it stayed that way. Neither did DNA as a sort of language, and again, I accept that analogy. DNA has evolved and changed to create all of the life forms on this planet. Again, we can see the very, very likely possibility of that with RNA. Just as the English language has evolved to have words for everything we have found since language came into existence, or the English language. You can see that in previous dictionaries. We are still making new words. They're coming all the time, and they're words for things that we find in this world that we didn't have a word for before. Also consider that you only use language when you're dealing with other people or other things. Even a computer language is only put in place for you to communicate with the computer. It's not there before the creation of it, but after. I don't see that God would have needed a language when he created us. It would have gone from his thought to existence just like that. Why would he need to create a code for it first? And if he was, I would expect a more perfect code. The words, and as for the words for each creature, those were not in existence before we found about those creatures. They came into existence under the circumstances, so I don't see how it was created ahead of time. Now, I know I may not be looking at this exactly the same as you are. I may be missing part of your point. So if you want to reply to this, we can go from there. Again, I'm thankful that we can have these conversations without it turning into something else. It's very easy to discuss these things with you, and hopefully we can continue it some more. Have a good day. Thanks.